This episode of Wheat Pete's Word is brought to you by Syngenta. Did you notice greener, healthier plants after using a Miravis fungicide? That's because with Miravis fungicides, you're getting more than effective, long-lasting protection against key diseases. You're also improving plant health through a greener canopy and increased light or energy capture. Visit syngenta.ca for more information.
Good day and welcome to Wheat Pete's Word here on Real Agriculture for Wednesday, November the 12th. On this episode of the Word, Holy Winter. Feast to famine. Then we've got plots. I will talk about crop sequencing, which should cheese a few people off. And then we've got lots of agronomy at the end of the episode. Let's go! Yes, I do love doing this word. It's just so much fun. So to start off with, very, very huge congratulations to Dr. Peter Sikkema. If you're a regular word listener, you know that I quote his research all the time. He was one of 6 inductees to the Canadian Agricultural Hall of Fame on Saturday. Hats off to you, Dr. Sikkema. Very, very well deserved, and such a vast wealth of knowledge. If you're looking for a speaker for your winter meetings, he is top notch and just knows about everything on weed control. Hey, here's one other quick addition. On November 26th, I've mentioned this, I will be speaking in Stratford at an event to talk about just general things, and it's in support of mental health, and it's going to be, I believe it's Coffee Shop with Pete, so bring your questions. But in addition to that agenda, Rod Beatty, if you know Wingfield Farms, Rod Beatty is the actor that does the one-man show for Wingfield Farms. He will be there and doing a bit of a skit and that. I'm so looking forward to that. He is such a funny guy. It will be awesome. Be there if you can. November 26th in Stratford. All right. November the 9th. Winter hits. It's so funny. We had summer until the 12th of October, something like that. I just forget the exact date, but maybe even into the 20th of September or October rather. Like it just stayed warm for so long. Fall was really, really short because from the 20th of October to the 9th of September, we had fall, and now we've got winter up to 50 centimeters in some locations. That's 20 inches for anyone listening south of the border. And so that is a lot of snowfall. And by the way, please, please, please slow down when there is snow on the road, especially at the start, because often, the snow is falling, the road is warm, it melts, and then it's still cold and it freezes, and you get that layer of ice. My great friend Albert Tenuta and his wife were in a bit of a car crash. Everybody's fine, but a bit of a car crash on Sunday as the snow started, and I really want people to be safe, because you never realize how lucky you are to have good health until you don't have good health. All right, I'll move on from that and just say, oh my gosh, talk about no equity. So even Dan, my friend Chicken Man Dan down in Kent, Chatham-Kent, even Dan got record corn yields this year. He is 20 bushels better corn yield than he has ever done before. And that just tells you what can happen when things go right. So if you are in that Essex, Chatham-Kent, Elgin County area, you are in the Cinderella zone. I've talked to custom combine operators in that area, and they say they haven't yet combined a cornfield of less than 250 bushels per acre. I can't wait to see the AgriCorn numbers out of that area, because, man, it's pretty rare that any county in the U.S. will break, 200 or 220 at the very most for a county yield average. Man, I'm thinking we might have some some pretty outstanding county yields in that area. Meanwhile, we go east of Toronto, and there's some places west of Toronto that are really low yield as well. But wow, you get east of Toronto, Mark, his lowest soybean field yield was 8 bushels per acre. The yield was lower than the moisture. I think Mark said the moisture was 10%, and it was 8 bushels per acre. Now, that was his worst, but even still, Warren, out in the Ottawa Valley, saying that, Pete, I thought maybe you'd win this time, but no, the corn average yield, Warren is done harvest, the corn average yield is 1 bushel per acre better than my winter wheat average yield this year. Gosh, Warren had really great winter wheat yields and really terrible corn yields. The corn still beat us, but not by doggone much. Hey, I spent a fair bit of time this past week at various meetings and with various people, and I just had a good conversation with Matt, and we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And everybody listening has just got to be howling with laughter right now because, wait a minute, Pete, who talks more than Pete? My gosh, man. Yeah, I hope you feel like I listen as well, and I think I do. But man, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and my mom would say that means you should listen twice as much as you talk, and some people just, wow. So just remember to listen as well in that conversation, and actively listen, like really listen to what the person is saying, because that matters to the people that are talking. All right, I'm going to move on. And I'm going to talk about plot data. So I hit this last week, and it stemmed some great conversation, even with John Sulik and Aaron Mills, so researchers that are just saying, Pete, come on now, there's lots of things going on here. So really, really cool. So here's some examples, right? So John tweeted out a great plot result. He got 14 bushel per acre yield increase this year from a product that he trialed. He got 5 bushels last year. And I tweeted back, and John hasn't responded yet, but I tweeted back, how many replications? Because replications matter. And so we'll move on to Mike. And Mike did his work at University of Guelph, has his master's, and so he's pretty good on setting plots up. So he does replications, and Mike sent me a beautiful email. He says, okay, Pete, my first replication, boron on corn in my 28% side dress, and the first replication I thought, yeah, baby, 12 bushels per acre more where we put on the boron. I'm doing this everywhere. And then he hit the second replication, and it was negative 2.5 bushels per acre. And he said, oh, gosh, so that's a 5 bushel positive outcome. It's still economic, but it's not the 12. And then he went to field 2, and 2 replications in field number 2, both at a 0 bushel yield difference. The moral of the story is that we have to get replications, we have to get multiple sites, multiple years to really know for sure whether or not that treatment works. And so the bottom line on boron, if you average Mike's 2 fields out, he's about a plus 2.5 bushel per acre yield gain. That's still something, but it's certainly not enough to say, wow, I'm doing it on all my acres. So we need more of those results. And Mike asked me, anybody else have boron on corn? I want to add to that data set. I haven't seen any, but if you have them, get them to me, because if we could get 12 bushels, baby, we'd all be doing it. But we need to have that consistent response. So here's another thought process. So, and I appreciate all the plot results. I got some plot results sent to me where each treatment was 14 acres. Okay, step back. 14 acres is not a side-by-side. It's a block in the field. And if you do a block in the field and you compare that to another 14-acre block in the field, man, it really means nothing. And I hate to say that, but the only comparison you have is right where the 2 treatments meet, because field variability in almost all of North America and probably globally, field variability will trump almost every time will trump the impact of the treatment that you're trying to compare. So please keep the plots coming. I love them. I mean, gosh, thanks to Ben, to Kathleen, to Bobby that are sending me lots of plot results. I love that. I wish more people would do that. But if we have to make sure the treatments are valid, that the results are valid, that we can have faith in the science. John Sulik, Dr. John Sulik, University of Guelph, he is the precision agricultural specialist. And he said, Pete, you need to read 2 books. One is How to Lie with Statistics, and the other one is How to Lie with Maps. I think yield maps maybe, but both. It's kind of, wait a minute, how do you lie with a yield map? No, you can lie with a yield map, and that's intriguing to me. So I will have to read those books, but really be careful with how we interpret that data. And the only valid data is actually a side-by-side, and you need it replicated to really add validity, to know that treatment didn't, one treatment happened to be over a tile, the other treatment wasn't, and guess what? The impact of the tile is going to trump the impact of the treatment you applied almost every time. Aaron Mills out of Prince Edward Island also, feeding into this discussion. He's a researcher with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, Dr. Aaron Mills, and he says, Pete, we were trying to find treatment differences and we just couldn't do it. And we realized that it was actually our crop rotation that was masking the differences. So when we were in a good crop rotation, the benefit of that crop rotation trumped all the different treatments we were trying to look at to have benefit to the crop. And if we would put it in a crappy crop rotation, we could start to sort out some of those differences. And I'm kind of going, well, I want everybody to be in a good crop rotation. So if you can't find the difference in a good crop rotation, I'm not sure I'm going to do that treatment. But really interesting that even crop rotation has that impact. So here's a great example of that. Brett, 2 years ago, had cover crop oat in a field, and beside that, in the same field, he had red clover that he had underseeded into his winter wheat. He grew corn on that this year. They were out disc gripping the field after the corn, disc gripping the corn stover, so it had been in corn for a full year. And I'm going to say, oh gosh, disc gripper. But what's really interesting with today's tractors, they just can tell you so much. What they found is they disc gripped across that field that as soon as they hit where the red clover was a full year ago, the fuel usage in that tractor and the horsepower requirement, the fuel usage dropped 20%. And the horsepower requirement also dropped. So the impact of past management, man, it can last way longer than you expect. And that also could mask the treatment. You just never know from that standpoint. All right, I want to talk, based on that, I want to talk about crop sequencing. Because Brad asked me a really good question. He said, okay, Pete, when I grow winter wheat following processing pea crop, my winter wheat yields just blow the doors off. So the pea crop must be bringing some nitrogen to the winter wheat crop. And wouldn't it help if we put nitrogen on winter wheat in the fall? And Brad's right. Anytime you grow winter wheat following peas, you will have massive winter wheat yields. That is just such a good rotation. In fact, it's so good that if you don't cut back the nitrogen, you will have tremendous lodging problems and you will scrape the crop off the ground. But it's not the nitrogen, because we have done those trials. We have looked at fall nitrogen. The pea crop actually releases that nitrogen to the wheat crop the next spring, and that's why it lodges. But there's something about that crop sequence, and Brad said, well, okay, if it's not nitrogen, explain to me what it is. We don't know. But what we do know is that there are certain crop sequences that do much better than other crop sequences. And so now I'm going to beat you over the head for the growers out there, because I know you exist. You are doing corn, soybean, winter wheat, back to corn. That is simply I think, wrong, because I think you'll get much higher yields if you just went corn, soybean, wheat, winter wheat, soybean. So you go corn, soybean, winter wheat, soybean. As soon as you grow soybeans on soybeans, that second year of soybeans takes a 10% yield hit. If you insert the wheat there, yeah, there's a benefit to growing corn after wheat, particularly if you can get red clover in there. But if you're not a red clover grower, and a lot of people aren't, the oat crop really doesn't bring much benefit to that corn crop. And so if you grow soybeans after the winter wheat, the soybeans will yield like crazy. In fact, in the long-term rotations at Ridgetown, a wheat-soybean rotation, which is not a rotation, it's an alternation, but a wheat-soybean, that is one of the highest yielding treatments that Dr. Dave has in those trials. So crop sequencing matters, and we need to look deeper at that. But if you're corn, soy, wheat, change. Corn, soy, wheat, soy, I think you'll have much, much better outcomes. All right, I need to move on. And so just to kind of counter that, I spent some time last week with a chap from Scotland, Ranald, and he's a Nuffield scholar, and he farms at the very northernmost tip of Scotland. His farm is closer to the Arctic Circle than it is to London, England, and that's kind of a fun point, right? It's just like, wow. It's also flat. You think of the hills of Scotland. No, he's past the hills. He's into the lowlands above the highlands, so north of the highlands. They tile drain, not because they get too much rainfall, but because the water comes up from the rock underneath, and it will just keep things too saturated, so they have to tile drain to get the water coming up from underneath away. But he grows 7 years continuous oat, and he gets 4 ton per acre oat. That's 260 bushels per acre if you're not a ton per acre person. That's massive oat yields. Oh yeah, I mean 4 ton isn't really that many pounds, but it's big in the oat world for sure. And 7 years continuous oat. And you just go, Pete, you just said crop sequencing matters. The crop after itself loses 10. Like, come on. Yeah, he grows 7 years of oat, and then he does 7 years of pasture because he has cattle and sheep. And the animals in their climate will cause surface compaction, and they have a pasture ripper that goes in with minimal disturbance but loosens up the topsoil because the animals' hoof prints give that much surface compaction. So some really cool stuff there. But if you grow enough forages, maybe you can grow, if you grow 4 years, 5 years of alfalfa, maybe you can grow corn on corn and not suffer as much as what I think. But you'll never change my mind on that. I don't think rotation matters. All right, I need to move on. Kevin asking, Pete, I got a V-box full of treated wheat seed. It's treated with Cruiser. Is it going to lose its germ over the year? Can I save it for next fall? And so my first question is, Kevin, why didn't you get that wheat seed in the ground? What the heck happened? We had a great fall. But it's in the wagon. It's Cruiser treated. That matters in this case because bugs love wheat. And so if you do intend to keep wheat seed over, because you got caught not planting it, and you didn't treat it with Cruiser, then make sure you add some diatomaceous earth, because otherwise the Indian meal moth and the granary weevil and all, insects love wheat more than any other crop we grow, I think. And so you have to protect it from insects. The Cruiser seed treatment will protect it from those insects. The germ, if you keep it dry, will hold up perfectly. Might lose a tad in vigor, but germ is not an issue. Larry calling me up and saying, Peter, is there any difference in large seeded wheat seed versus small seeded wheat seed? Because when I buy certified seed, it almost always looks like bigger seed. And if I look at somebody's bin run seed, it never looks like it's as big plump kernels. Is there a difference in yield between large seeds and small seeds? John Rousel did a bunch of that work at New Liskeard back in the 1990s, if you can imagine. And the answer is that most of the time, there's no difference between a large seed and a small seed because the genetics, the genes inside those two seeds are identical. And as long as the seed manages to get out of the ground and has some vigor left, which, you can always find situations where that isn't true, but 99% of the time, there's less than 1 bushel per acre difference whether you plant large seed or small seed. On the upside, if you do have large seed, there's more carbohydrate in that seed. If it goes under stress during emergence, it's got more food reserves to survive and still come through. So big seed is probably a good thing in a cereal crop, not necessarily so much in a soybean crop, because big seed, bigger cotyledons, more to push up through the soil surface. Difference in emergence there, but that's a whole nother question. Jerry sending me an email saying, Pete, I've got manganese deficiency in wheat here in the Niagara Peninsula. And wow, it was a video and you could pick out every buggy track, every combine track, every track from the drill that planted the wheat. And where it was compacted, the wheat was dark green and great. In between, it was yellow, and you just say, what is the matter with that? 100% that is manganese, because where you compact it, it's wetter. When it's wetter, the manganese reduces, it loses an oxygen, and so therefore it's more available. In the soil that didn't get compacted, it oxidizes, and in the oxidized form, the plant can't pick it up, and so we get manganese deficiency. And Jerry's comment was, do I do anything? Man, if you have manganese deficiency that's visual, you have to correct it as soon as you can. I would spray it this fall if I could. Even if you've had some snow, if we get 2 weeks of decent weather, I think a foliar application is going to help that manganese deficient wheat. Josh saying, hey Peter, I have dark green and black mold showing up on the corn, and I'm actually hearing reports of that from other people. Almost for sure that is Cladosporium. It could be Alternaria. There's no toxin issues from either of those. The Alternaria is the black mold that we get on the wheat crop at harvest, right? The glooms, the chaff gets a black color. That's Alternaria. It could be Cladosporium. On corn, it's often Cladosporium, particularly if it's a green mold, a dark green mold going to black. No toxins, but what it does indicate is that corn probably never matured entirely. We often associate it with frost damaged corn or with corn that didn't really mature fully, and they're secondary saprophytes, so they're not going to have a big impact, but it does make the corn look ugly, no doubt about that. And what it tells you is get it out of the field as quickly as you can. Franz from South Africa saying, Pete, on corn, I know at Tassel we're supposed to put molybdenum, we're supposed to put boron on the corn crop. My tissue tests tell me I'm short boron, not molybdenum. Do I have to put the two together to get the benefit? So Franz, the answer is no. If you've got enough molybdenum in that corn plant, and I'm not even sure, I think that whole test is a little bit questionable, but regardless, if you're short boron, just like my discussion with Mike about the boron in that 28%. If you are truly short boron, get boron on as a foliar. If your plant tissue test says we've got enough molybdenum, you do not have to apply both of those, not a chance. One last really quick note. It's an alert. If you farm in the New Liskeard region, if you're in Northern Ontario farming, the oat crop this year got hammered with crown rust. Most of the time, we don't see much crown rust in oat in that district, and we don't worry about it. Oh, this year, it's there. It hit earlier than normal. We do get it up there, but it's mostly so late that we don't really have a yield impact. This year, tremendous yield impact. Fungicides control crown rust. It's just a note for next year. Scout. Spray if you have to, 100%. And with that, that's it. That's all on behalf of the team here at Real Agriculture. This is Wheat Pete with the word for Wednesday, November the 12th. Hey, keep the feedback, keep the comments, keep the plot results coming, even if I beat you up about them not being exactly statistically or that we can't necessarily say they're perfect. I still got to see them, because otherwise, how do I learn? Talk to you next week.
Thank you for downloading this episode of Wheat Pete's Word, brought to you by Syngenta. Did you know that crops treated with Mirabis fungicides stay greener longer with plant canopies that are clear of disease? Ask your rep about elevating your cereal disease protection with Mirabis Era, Mirabis Ace, and Mirabis Neo.